aujourd'hui, nous sommes à la 8e édition de Corporate Women in Leadership. On a fait plusieurs pays déjà en Afrique. On a fait le Sénégal, le Gabon, la Côte d'Ivoire, le Cameroun. Et l'année passée, cette année, on a lancé le network dans le réseau. Le réseau, c'est une opportunité qui est un peu plus closed. It is very closed, meaning it is only for registered members. For the Corporate Women in Leadership, anybody can join. We normally have events where we host up to 200 women, but we have this once a year, and the next one is coming in November. But the network is really is tailored, meaning it is for smaller number of people, because these people we can manage. At the network, what we expect to do, we expect that by the time you will go with some skills that you need to help you to navigate your ways. Today we're talking about networking your way to the top. Vraiment, c'est très important pour savoir l'art de networking. Parce que c'est avec le networking que tu peux aller à la prochaine étape de ta vie. C'est avec le networking que tu peux bien te positionner. C'est avec le networking que tu peux avoir confiance de te lever un grand matin comme ça et commencer à parler un peu avec tout le monde sans être un peu timide. Donc, Elizabeth is our guest for today. And she's the finance director, CFO of Gaz du Cameroun. She's got a lot of experience in networking. I've had a lot of chats with her already about this event, and I'm truly confident that she's the right person that we brought on board today to help us with our soft skills in networking. Elizabeth is very open-minded and truly accessible, meaning you can connect with her, network with her, and have the opportunities of seeing how you can benefit from the partnerships that we are here today, because we're all partners today. See how you can benefit from the partnerships that we're going to create, and how she, myself, and all of us in here, we can help with the next big move. So we're going to have a conversation today where she will be expressing her experience. She'll be sharing her experience with us. So good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Adeline, and good morning to all the ladies here who have joined us for this Corporate Women's Breakfast this morning.
Elizabeth, we're talking about networking today, and before we dive into the matters, I would like you to introduce yourself so that our guests for today will know who Elizabeth is. I know sometimes it's hard to talk about yourself, but I think you've talked about yourself a lot of time. That is easy now, isn't it?
Yes, exactly, and that's one of the things of networking. One must be able to introduce yourself, and it should roll off your tongue very crisply, and you should be able to let everybody know who you are in like 2 or 3 seconds. So I'm Elizabeth Burns. I'm the CFO of Gaz du Cameroun, and I've had a very career right around the globe in various industries. So today I'm coming to share my experiences, how I've got here through building networks and networking and building my relational and social capital, and hope I can impart some knowledge and advice to you all today.
Thank you for being so articulate. Thank you. Now let's go into the first question. Networking is the art of connecting with people with the express purpose of exchange. Tell us, what is networking and how important is this?
Okay, so really networking is a very important activity. It can either lead to little or no success in your life, and we all know it's very important to build networks throughout your professional career, right from when you are leaving university all the way through to when you're the top of these companies. Why is networking important? It's important because it creates opportunities for one along their career path, opportunities to meet other people who can either offer very good advice to you or can provide very good feedback to you along the route in terms of your personal development and your professional development. And networks are very important because your life is made up of connectivity and relational capital. So you're always connecting with people. And in a way, you have to know all your strengths to be able to network and connect with people. and to be able to draw on their experiences. At the same time, you also have to be able to share your experiences and develop and grow people along your career. So be able to be a mentor to certain people, or to be able to offer them advice, or to be able to be a think tank in your industry, create ideas, bring solutions. So networking, that's why networking is absolutely important. And it's something that grows with you along your career. It's something that you can take and grow right throughout your career. You can start off small, and you can develop that and then start speaking at conferences yourselves, breakfast yourselves, and learn and build your skill set as well, because when you're networking, you have to get out there. You have to have the courage to attend events, and you have to have the confidence to be able to meet people and project yourself clearly, and to be curious, to ask questions, to understand and grow your knowledge. So I think that's really why networking is important, especially in the professional world.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think that was truly there's nothing I can add to what Elizabeth has said. I think you've said it all, and you've made it really easy to understand. And I think Safi will be able to throw light on that after this, just in case. But I feel that Elizabeth has touched the most of what networking is all about. So let's get a little bit personal. Through your extensive years of experience in financial, commercial, and strategic management roles globally, how did networking shape and play a part in your career? What are some of the specifics?
Yes, like I said, it's been a long journey, over 25 years in the corporate world, and I have some examples to share with you today that may shed some insight to you ladies this morning. So basically, when I started my career, I started with an administrative training program for middle managers in a company that was over 150 years old. So the program was in place from the 1970s when I joined that program in 1994, straight out of university. Basically on that program, they gave you the ability to integrate and network with all the divisions in that large-scale industrial company called Siemens. And they gave you the opportunity to be able to stand up and present before the board of directors projects. From that 2-year program, I secured my first role in the company at a very young age of 27. Yeah, so after that, it was only within another 3 years and I was promoted to divisional manager for the whole region, the youngest ever in the company, and the first woman at that age to reach that level of middle management. So it was just 7 levels behind the CEO of Southern Africa. So it was like an opportunity that I haven't forgotten. It was an opportunity where it was full of learning and development for myself, but it came with a lot of hard work. So when you're going towards the top, it's a lot of hard work to get there, you know. To put it into perspective, you can say you were working 7 days a week. There was days when you worked 48 hours non-stop without getting home, right? So you had to put in a lot of work and effort to build your competencies and capabilities, and to be able to relate in the board meetings to senior directors when you were in your 30s and they were in their middle 50s to 60s. It's a large age gap to actually mitigate, because they come from different thinking than you, and they have a different way of behavior than somebody who's in their 30s. So to be able to relate to senior directors of those levels, you had to acquire a lot of knowledge, even outside of your industry, general knowledge, to be able to talk about sports, rugby, for instance, cricket, yeah, so all different things, motor racing, GP, and those are things that weren't really of an interest to me, but I had to get up to speed with them, go and watch rugby matches, go out with the boys for drinks, yeah, and generally with being the only lady in those positions, it was also quite difficult because you never had another figure to model or to discuss anything with. So it was generally, a lot of it was men's talk. Sometimes you had to stay clear of those conversations. So that sort of like was a commencement. Second of all, I had a wonderful opportunity to be mentored by the CEO of that company for Southern Africa, a direct mentorship under his wing. And that lasted basically 18 months before he said he wasn't able to teach me anything more. And I was on my own and I should fly. But at that time, I was given an opportunity to leave South Africa after working for them for 10 years and start again in the United Kingdom, and which I discussed with Safi today, which was quite different to South Africa. It was a different domain. It's a different mindset in the UK when you walk into these big corporates. I had to integrate into a German mindset with the headquarters in Germany and broach boardrooms where there was 40 directors at once and I was presenting. So it wasn't easy. And you had to work at a lot of your soft skills as well to be able to try and integrate in a mindset that you were not used to. So I think those gave me all the opportunities to be confident, to be able to take every opportunity I was given, because it was really linked by networks that I was given these opportunities. So the CEO in South Africa knew the CEO in the UK very well. And that's how it happened that they broached a transition for me to leave the country to get international experience. From there, they put me on the high flyers networks and they sent me on advanced mergers and acquisition work for the group in the United Kingdom. Yeah, so one of only 2 people in the United Kingdom that were identified for that. So again, that was building networks. From there, I took the opportunity to apply for the Careers in Africa Forum. So I'm not sure if you know that it's a big forum. It's now in quite a few countries. Back then it was just in Houston, it was in the United Kingdom. And that opportunity, they granted over 10,000 applicants. They refined that to about 1,000 people who could attend the event. So at that event, I managed to get an interview with Coca-Cola. I met the director for Coca-Cola for the whole of East Africa. And the morning of my interview, he actually didn't pitch up for the interview. I sat waiting. It was a morning that Kenyan Airways actually crashed in Douala the night before on a Saturday night. Mm-hmm. They were worried that there was Coca-Cola people on board that Kenyan Airways jet. And we just clicked as soon as he walked in. He said, "Elizabeth, why are you here?" And I told him, "I'm here because I would like to go and work in Africa again. I'd like to leave the UK and position myself back in Africa. I'm very fond of wildlife and flying helicopters. And I've been looking for a job with Coca-Cola to help me along my personal journey on my loves and my passions and combine my work." Well, within literally 3 days, they had to phone me back, identified the opportunity for me to be the financial director in Tanzania, and flew me out the next week. Wow. So it was a grueling interview, 7 hours. I met all the new directors. They put me through my paces, but obviously it was meant to be. So that's how I landed in Coca-Cola in Tanzania. From Coca-Cola Tanzania, I was offered multiple opportunities, and we know we've talked about Coca-Cola, she's got a background there. So I decided I would go and pursue a full-time MBA after that role, because I had really had a very pressurized portfolio there. So I went back to the United Kingdom, to the Henley Business School, the boutique business school, did a full-time MBA, really to focus on personal development and growth. Nothing more. To focus on me, to take 1 year out of my life and put it back into myself, renew my soul, renew my vision, work on my skill sets, decide where I want to go and how I'm going to broach the next gaps in my corporate career. So back then I was doing my dissertation. I was sitting in Delhi in India in a hotel, and a job came flashed up on my laptop. I applied for that job, I got it. I applied specifically because I'd been dreaming of West Africa and gold mining, and I managed to combine that in that role with AEI. So that was for the manufacture of dynamite and explosives for the mines. So I got that job. I went and did that for 5 years. It took me through to Burkina Faso. And when I came to the end of that career, I just got a call one day in January, and they asked me would I like to come to Cameroon in the oil and gas sector. And I said, I'm keen. And I went through all the provisional interviews. I arrived in Cameroon. Well, actually, the flight didn't even fly that day. I arrived 4 o'clock, had the interview 8 o'clock in the morning, and flew out that night. And I was offered a contract. So life takes you in different places, but it's also through building your networks. Just to get back to you, networks are so important. So the director of Coca-Cola, even when I was doing my MBA in Shanghai, when I went to Shanghai for the section, I called him up. He was a director of Coca-Cola in China then.
Oh, wow.
He sent a limousine, he picked me up at the hotel, and he brought me for private dinner. So your networks stay with you for most of your life. And we'll probably get to a point where we'll discuss when it's not appropriate, or there's times when you have to trim your networks or take count of it. But generally, every single director and boss that I have had throughout my career is still in my network, is still my friend, personal friend, and I can still call them for a reference, and I can still call some of them for advice, fatherly advice, business advice, due to their lifelong skill sets. So those give you sort of some of the aspects from my experience, but there's other aspects. I mean, look, I'm the treasurer now of the Tico Golf Club. That brings me into connection with people in the marketing and funding background, in connection with more CFOs and CEOs of these big corporates that I'm looking for sponsorships from, and obviously to drive and develop golfing in the Cameroun through that base. And then obviously, if you look at my career, I've been involved in big companies that have required a lot of funding over their lifetime, like millions of dollars and millions of dollars and millions of dollars. So it's taught me the language of investment bankers. It's taught me the language of bankers. That goes beyond my role as CFO. I can walk into any investment bank and pitch. I can walk into any bank and deal directly with the top bosses on my business plan, on an opportunity, on the negotiations of the terms, etc. So you just build a lot more knowledge with your network, and you've got a lot more people to fall back on. If I can't go to that bank and get it right, I can ask them for their contact in that bank if I don't know them, and we can have a meeting, or they can introduce me. And this is what we do. It's about shared synergy and leveraging your networks throughout your life to build your career, and also to put that investment into the company and to deliver the best you can do in that company to grow it. So I think from my side, that should give you like a lot of scope.
Wow, that is so intense and truly pressurized. You did well to take a break. I'll just give a brief summary. Networking landed her almost all the top roles she's had. It is so important to keep this in mind, that your network is your net worth. Because sometimes we forget. We feel that I've got the wings, I can now fly. But even though the director told her after 18 months of mentorship that, Elizabeth, this is it, take this right and just fly. She flew, but she understood the assignment. The assignment was not for her to go do it all by herself, but to continuously build relationship, to keep relationship that she has made, and continue to tap into these relationships for the next and the next and the next opportunities. You've said a lot of things that might kind of pull me a little bit away from the questions that I have planned for you, but it is still on networking. So I think I want to permit myself to ask you this question. It's a follow-up question from your career. You've talked about navigating not just the sector. I know we'll be coming on the sector change in a bit, because you changed your sector from the sports, because you're talking about from your first role as an admin, and then I saw you landing into oil and gas. That means somewhere along the line you were able to shift the dynamics, you were able to shift the things that you do. How do you identify people within the sector that you want to go into? So for example, you're aiming for this career, you're aiming for this role. How do you identify the right people to connect with in terms of networking? Do you just go square and ask your mentors, the people you know, or is there any other way that you do this?
I think, Adeline, just to answer your question, when you work in industry, you meet a lot of people. So you're always attending events, you're always attending conferences, you're cutting across the same vendors, stakeholders like customers, banking sectors, sporting events with within the industry and outside that industry. So there's a lot of cross-pollination of contacts within that industry and outside that industry. And your network has such leverage. Every person maybe knows another 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 people out there. Yeah, so if you don't know somebody, you can always get to know somebody. I would say I've never researched and looked up somebody on LinkedIn for any contact, no. So that's just from my perspective. My jobs have always come on the strength of word of mouth, generally, and recommendation. Yeah, so there's various ways you can play it in life, but I like to leverage my network way beyond my industry and my role that I currently play. So I've got different passions in life, like wildlife, yeah, which is my number one passion, and looking at alleviating poverty, looking at sponsoring students through schools and universities in domains that I don't necessarily enjoy, so engineering and fields like that. So I would say yes, your network is built on the strength of how many people you're connecting, and also how you're leveraging that network. And never be afraid to go to events. Never be afraid to look for conferences, online events even now, because we're moving into the online domain with a lot of online seminars available. Always be prepared to look in industry, who's the who, and who's doing what, and go and meet them, in some type of format. I mean, your company can arrange an event and invite your key customers. That's a way to connect. Or you can have a event for some of your key stakeholders, like your banks that you work with and key vendors and things. That's possible. Or you can use the community events that are already out there, that are taking place. Yeah, so there's always ways to network. And if by talking to somebody they know somebody of influence that you need to know, well, sure, go and ask them, but you've got to do it in the right way. And sometimes you've got to be patient. You're not going to get to that top influencer immediately through one of your connections. It takes time. Some of my connections I've had to grow over 25 years. Some have been more shorter. I've made instantaneous connections almost immediately and built on that. And some have taken a little bit more of a different path. So they come and go. You see them, and then there's times when for a long time there's no face-to-face, there's no actual interaction for any specific purpose, but you sometimes come back to that person in a very unknown way. Maybe their child is looking for an academic internship, or maybe they need some help and advice because they're going through a midlife crisis, like a divorce sometime down the line. Yeah? Or maybe they need to broach their career and say, I need to step back and see if this is really working for me, or do I need to make slight change, or do I want to jump off the corporate ship and go and start my own business now? So things like that, yes. Does that answer your question?
Thank you so much, that's well said. I think I picked the fact that the language that you speak is truly important. The language, it doesn't mean, I'm not talking about French or English or German or Spanish. I'm talking about how you express yourself. And I also picked the fact that you have to be patient, and you have to understand that a network is like a baby. You start very young and then you need to grow.
Yes.
So you have to make sure you grow in. Interpersonal skills are important for growth. However, some people struggle. Not everyone is good at talking to people, mingling as we call it. What are some of the simple lines we can use to introduce ourselves efficiently and build a lasting impression?
Yes, thank you. So, Adeline, I think, when somebody doesn't feel confident or have the courage, or feel they have the strength to go out and network, everybody has that ability. You've just got to work on it. Yeah? Do it slow, take it slowly. You can go and speak to one person at a time. You just go up to them and say, hi, nice to meet you, I'm so-and-so. Have you been here before? Yeah, how are you enjoying the event? Let's go for a cup of coffee. Sometimes it's easier to just take a colleague with you, yeah, and not go alone. In my instances, Mostly I go alone, yeah, to lots of events. I feel I have the ability to go and do that. I feel I have the ability acquired over a long period of time just to go and say hi to people, to interact with them. If I don't know anybody, fine. Just at least say good morning and how are you doing? That's at least a start, and somebody will come and talk to you. But what I'd like to say to the ladies here today is, if you see somebody alone generally, try to integrate them. Try to pull them into your conversation or with your group. Yeah, at least try to show some care and encourage them. Yeah, so if you don't have the strengths, work on those few strengths. There's a lot of methods that you can go and look and analyze your strengths. But I think everybody has a capability, and everybody has something to teach somebody else, which is actually the fundamentals of networking. I mean, we didn't know each other. We had such a fabulous 1 hour today, myself and Safi, and we got to know each other within that time, understand each other, know what ticks with each other, know where she wants to go. So I think we all have that ability. So feel confident in yourself. God's given everybody abilities. One of the easiest ways to get engaged with people is to ask questions. So have a set of questions ready. Maybe you've researched Adeline and you know she's from Fabra Creek and this and that. Well, just ask her a couple of questions that you know she'd like to answer, because people also like to talk about themselves, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also another key skill in networking is active listening. When somebody introduces themselves to you, try and remember their name. Oh, that's Stephanie, that's Bernice, that's Safi, that's Fanny, that's Adeline. Yeah, that's Irene, who I met this morning. You understand? So try and remember people's names. Try, when you introduce yourself as well, have like some little slogan or something memorable that somebody can remember you by. Now, my biggest win with her is Coca-Cola Angola. You know, that was an immediate connection. You understand? So I won't forget her. Yes? So those are the ways that you can try and work on your areas of weakness. And for instance, if you're good at data analytics, use your data analytics to make connections. Add 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, and you'll have like 25 connections soon. Yeah? And the more you get used to building connections and networking, the more positive you feel in yourself, your self-esteem grows, your personal visibility grows, and your success follows. Yes. So I hope I've summarized that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think this is question 4 is actually very linked to question 3, but I want you to put this in your context. So, does understanding your strengths, expertise, and accomplishments help you network better? How?
I think yes, it does help you develop better, because you can really, when you at a top level, you're giving now a lot more back than you're taking in the professional networking domain generally. Yeah. So when you get to the top, you send in an elevator down again to try and pull other people up to the top with mentorship programs and so forth. So yes, understanding your strengths is vital. It's vital to trying to provide solutions and advice to other persons that are requiring it generally. Because at the top, you know, you're not really needing to acquire too much more knowledge. I mean, you're just applying the knowledge. So it's more about sharing that and with others, and trying to get others to see new perspectives, or to see different solutions than they've been used to on lower levels in the companies. So I would say yes, understanding your strengths is vital. Yeah. And I think one more aspect is to keep a very open mindset with networking. You know, diversity is a spice of life. Yeah. Don't try and discriminate on age basis or race basis, sex basis, or industry basis, because everybody's got so much to deliver and bring from those various backgrounds. Me, I still utilize a lot of the skill sets within my team. I know them very well. I know their strengths. I know what makes them tick. When I'm going to a particularly difficult meeting, or I would like a specialist there that knows the finance law, the tax law per se, I will bring them with, because I would like them to share the depth of knowledge, whereas I've got the breadth of knowledge to argue and to bring the different pieces together. So it's taking the strengths of the people that I need to meetings. I do that all the time. And sometimes I just stand back and I let them go and do it themselves when I know they can do it. Yes, like speaking at the EITI conference with the Minister of Finance, I will send my best JV finance head down to do that. So I encourage them to be the best, to pull out their best skills and attributes as well. So you have to understand your strengths and skills, utilize them. If you've got weaknesses, work on them. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll be an expert, but also bring out the skill sets of others in your team and in the business.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's talk about, when we had a conversation, because we had a briefing before this, and we discussed how networking is not just, you mentioned that networking is not just about saying, hi, I'm Adeline, or exchanging business cards and hoping that the other person would call. Elizabeth mentioned that values plays a very important part in networking. So my question to you, I'm bringing back this question because I love the way you articulated when we had our prep meeting. So how can you expatiate on your values and how you network with people based on your values?
Okay, so I'd like to first really say that networking needs to be considered as your social capital. Everybody goes to work, they get a good job, and then you're looking to acquire assets, your house, your car, etc. You have mortgages to pay off. So it's not just about your financial debt, and it's not about your retirement. It's about your social capital, building those networks. Those networks become more than a professional network. They become a safety net when you need them. When perhaps there's an economic downturn and people lose their jobs, and you're laid off. So you need those networks that will support you basically on an emotional and a mental basis as well, and pull you through. Or if you're going through some very difficult challenges in life, which we all face, and we know we all face, you will need those networks. They're not just to build you in business and to give you the next job, no. When you're looking at your net worth of your networks, it's about the shared values. It's about creating trust. It's about building face-to-face time. It's about prioritizing that person. It's about also giving back in that network. So your net worth is not just, okay, I'll give you a business card and I'll click you on LinkedIn. No, it doesn't work like that. Not at all. You have to develop that network, nurture that relationship, build on that relationship, and know you can count on that relationship at the end of the day. So that's why I considered it net worth, because it's all about values. It's all about integrity. It's all about trust. It's not taking advantage of that network in any way. It's not constantly chasing that person. It's allowing that nurturing relationship to flow over time and to develop over time. And then it's about helping somebody else. So if Safi needs something from me in the industry, I can share and introduce her. And I think it's about introducing contacts that can help Adeline, sponsors, keynote speakers. You understand? We also have to facilitate a whole program of development for all these ladies, and so that we can engage at deeper levels and build more meaningful relationships. It's also about a very open environment where we can give each other constructive feedback, and encourage each other and your fellow colleagues and ladies out there in the Cameroon and Douala and industry to come to these events. Yes. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Elizabeth. You've made some strong examples, and I really want to use this example, this opportunity to say thank you for your Thank you for all the time that you've been around for our program, and thank you for supporting the initiative all the time. I'll thank my heroes as well who worked in they're part of our mentors of our network, so I'm happy they could take time of their very busy schedule to come and support us today. And please, let's keep doing this. It's very important. As you can see, the network grows every time we have, people coming up, people using these opportunities. This is a springboard which we all need, to spring up to the next level. You've talked about values. Now let's talk about inappropriation. Is there an instance where you feel, maybe in your life, or maybe just an example like that, where you feel networking is inappropriate? And if so, how?
Yes, I had a nice time to think about that, and I had some nice examples from my career. So I would say yes, there's times when you have to disassociate with a connection. There's a time you have to do it for purposes where it will have damage to your reputation or damage to your larger network. Yeah, so there's cases where obviously there's been elements of fraud within your network, or there's elements where within your network they're not upholding the same moral values and integrity values as you are aligned with in the network, and it could lead to repercussions both professionally and personally in your network. So yeah, if it's just a one-way street as well, when you're putting in all the effort and you're not seeing in that connection giving back in any way. I mean, they don't have to give back in giving you a job, but they can give back in giving you support, encouragement, advice, etc. So where it's a one-way street. And yes, I think within your network sometimes you have to take account and do an audit. It's like doing an audit of your skill sets at various points in your life. You'll have to clean out some of those contacts that are no longer helping you and elevating you to be visible, or no longer serving the purpose for which they were intended. So yes, there is times, and I would probably not like to give too much detail around that, but I think everybody can understand and take the gist of that. Yeah, so it works like that with your friends. If there's a toxic environment or a toxic relationship or it's negative, well, you may have to give it space, give it an opportunity to change and then keep it, or you may have to let it go and move on and build different connections that are more positive, because we all need positivity in our life.
Yes.
Yeah, always positivity.
Thank you. So it's about us picking who we want to keep, who we want to say, okay, it has been a good ride, but we stop here. And it's about us knowing our values and making sure we do not compromise our values, because we meet people every day and we all have different agendas. So let's ask the last question. I mean, we can chat about networking forever, but we know this is just the part one of our program, and part two is coming after this. So Elizabeth, you've said a lot of things today on networking, and I'm sure we've all retained a lot of things that she said. But let's talk about what you would like them to take home. So if everybody or anyone is leaving this venue today, what would you like them to take home from the things that you've said?
Well, for me, it's a learning pathway. I think that's the most important matter to take today. It's all about growth. It's your growth. It's your growth personally and professionally. So use it as a learning pathway and a gateway. Also, discover your abilities and uncover them. Yeah, and learn to have the courage and confidence just to go out there. So I would say that, because every single one of you can get up here and be the keynote speaker. I know that. Yeah? Maybe not now, but maybe in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. Or maybe you could even speak better than me today, like Marie Rose, yeah? Yeah? So I think networking is important. It's about nurturing the relationship, really, at the end of the day. And developing an inherent heart connection and heart-to-heart connection with that connector. Yeah. So the new terminology coined around today is connectional intelligence. It goes way further than networking on this basis, because it's getting into a much more digital age and the way digital age is moving. I'm from the old school of thought. I loved face-to-face. I love, if somebody wants to come and chat to me, I prefer you ask me to come for a coffee with you, if I can fit it in, because that's the way I like to do it. You look, I can call you on the phone,
I know.
but you won't have the same feeling of who I am, and you won't maybe get the same time, because the phone you can put down very quickly, you know. But whereas if you call me for a cup of coffee, you've got me like for 20 minutes, if you understand, if you need some advice. So I would like the ladies to take that from today. And I'd like to thank you very much, Adelaide, for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So we know it's not just about WhatsApping. It's about taking time, travel all the way from the Southwest, like Gen Z, to attend such an event. It's about meeting people, having that connection with them. We can talk on the phone really briefly, but the face-to-face meetings that we have is truly important. So thank you, Elizabeth. Let's take a few questions. We only agreed to take 3 questions today because we want to make sure we all benefit from the workshop part of our, of our network. So Nelly, if anyone has questions for Elizabeth, this is a time to ask. She'll be happy to answer. So just with a show of hand, and then we'll bring the mic to you. Il faut que je parle un peu en français. Maintenant, c'est le moment. OK, il y a une question? OK. Je vais parler en français quand même, parce que je vais exercer mon français. Maintenant qu'on a fini cette première partie nous sommes presque à la fin de cette première partie de notre conversation. On aimerait les questions. S'il y a certaines personnes ici qui aimeraient des questions, peut-être il y a des questions qu'on n'a pas posées, puisque ce n'est pas seulement des questions qu'on a posées qui est important sur le latte de networking. Si vous avez une question qui est en train que vous aimeriez Elisabeth ou quelqu'un ici pour y répondre, ça c'est le moment. On va prendre 3 questions, comme ça on peut rapidement s'avancer à la prochaine étape. OK.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Please, Madam Elizabeth, I have a question. So what if you have skills? You know, actually you have faith that you have skills to express, maybe in companies, but your scope is limited. That your scope of network is limited. For example, I take my case. I have skills, I have dreams. In fact, that I don't have the opportunity to really express my dream of becoming maybe a leader somewhere, but my scope is so limited. Apart from conferences like this, how do I get connected to people who can help me and fulfill my dreams?
Okay.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much for your question.
Because I have a limited scope.
Yes, I understand your question. So I understand that your portfolio currently is limited. You've got skill sets and you have a dream that you would like to fulfill. I think you need to try and go outside of your current thought process. Go and see and sit with somebody who can actually help you to leverage those skills, to maybe facilitate you in upgrading or upskilling your CV, to showcase yourself. Yeah, that's another method that you can utilize. And then also being a personal brand ambassador for yourself is the most important element in professional development, is your own personal brand and development of your own personal brand. We all know how much money marketing companies put in to the brand and to advertising. We've got to do the same with ourselves. Yeah, and we also have to try to take the next step and look at how we're going to take that next step. It may not be an automatic jump for the current role you are in now to a next big role. Sometimes there's sideward moves that have to take place, an acquisition of a change in industry, or acquisition and a change of additional portfolio. So maybe to go to your boss and say, look, my scope is limited, I'd like to learn and grow in this area and acquire new skill sets. We do it all the time in our company. Perhaps like a person who's been at a very low level becomes a receptionist, then they move up the company. They also learn and go to night school. They actually build their skill sets within the organization, right across the employee organization. So there's various elements to look at that. So if you would like, I'm willing to, I'm willing, what's going on?
It's okay, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm willing to help you, at some point in a time, we can arrange that.
Okay. Question this way.
Okay, my question will be about how to network with men, because we are in the corporate world, and the corporate world is dominated by men. And you say that networking is not only say hi on WhatsApp. How do you have the basic knowing what is the interest of people, what is the interest of men, without creating second thoughts or...
Yes, yes, I know. So I just, from my background, have a lot of experience with men. It's all been generally male-dominated environments and industries initially. And, going back sometime in your career, it was generally dominated by the boards by men. You didn't really get any women at the high end. So, look, men are no different from women, just apart from the sexes. It's so easy to go up and talk to another gentleman about their interests, about their hobbies, about their sports. You have to also acquire a little bit of knowledge about football and the football leagues, and because that's generally what Cameroon men like as well, yeah. And I don't think one needs to cross a healthy professional boundary with anybody, whether it be men or women. You have to keep your space. You have to identify the situation and not cross over those professional boundaries of work life. And you're there only really to integrate and understand that person and learn from them and acquire that knowledge. And look, we all got husbands, brothers, sons, fathers, uncles. So it's very easy to get to know what men enjoy, what men like talking about. It's very easy to go and greet a man at a conference and say, oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm from this industry, I'm from that background. Do you perhaps know any of my colleagues from this company, or where are you from? Because backgrounds good conversation starts at the village you're from, or the area you're from, or where you grew up, or where you went to university, or which companies you work for, etc. So it's quite easy to broach that, and I don't think, never be frightened of men. No, they say men are from Mars, but never, it's not true, We all work in the same domain. Some men are very soft and sensitive, other men are a little bit more distant in their approach.
Yes, Madam, I would like to ask what about circumstances where there are some other pressures, maybe family, maybe, because I know there are some women that were really ambitious, but when they started making a family, or they think of making a family, it breaks them and they cannot push with their goals or ambitions. So how can somebody manage the pressure of maybe keeping a family and also breaking through your career?
Okay, so if I understand your question, it's the dynamics of the pressure on the family and the responsibilities of the family and the career at the same time. Okay, so I think really from my side, everybody's going to face family pressures in their lives, There's times when you have to maybe take a little bit of a backseat for the family and put that responsibility first, and put your career on hold maybe for the amount of time it's needed. That doesn't mean you still can't go and network, and it doesn't mean you still can't be acquiring skills if that has to take precedence at that point in your life. I think, with the cultures in Cameroun and various places of the world, one understands those elements very clearly, where family and the role of woman in the family needs to take a secondary place to the career platform. But it doesn't mean you can't go out and relaunch your business and relaunch your career after that. It's just about managing that interface, because don't forget, nobody, if you have a career, you're nothing without your family. Your family is that support mechanism for you, and that's why you're working for them in the first place. So you can't cut out the family relations and maintain a professional network. At the same time, you can't have a professional network only and have no family network and relations, because a network within the family is just as important for that individual or person. So I'd like to perhaps answer your question that way. There's a time and there's a season in life for different things. So maybe it's not the season where you can push and promote for higher roles in your career. Maybe you just have to hold back for a little bit of time until fundamentally that area is resolved in your life, or that time when it was a priority has expired and you can take your career forward again.
But I've had the opportunity to work in so many big companies, but I've never been really valued. Not because I don't have the competence, not because I don't have the skills, but maybe because of my background, because when people come, because they come from very big families, the approach is different. The way to treat them is different. So this question comes from the background. Does it mean that somebody from, let's say, from a humble family cannot have a great position? Because this question always comes to me. Child, I found the key.
Who's your parents? Who are your parents? That's
Irene,
true.
thank you for that question. I think it's a very important question. I would say, yes, there's a lot of influence when you come from a background that's very wealthy, or the family is very influential. Yeah? But for my case, I'm not from that type of a background. Yeah? I think, Adeline, you're not from that type of a background. You have to make your own way in life. I know there's a lot of favoritism in companies. It's natural. It's natural. One boss will like you and the next boss will just not have any time for you. So I think, how you're feeling, Irene, is, yes, if you've come from humble backgrounds and you've worked your way up, just continue. Continue to be yourself. Continue to be authentic and genuine. Continue to try and elevate your profile within that company, no matter how you have to do it. You have to do it in the right way, obviously. You can't be using bribery and corruption to try and get your way up through life, Rather do it in a gentle approach, a loving approach. Find maybe 2 or 3 other persons in that organization who can rally around to show and highlight your skills and values that you're contributing. Yeah? And the bottom line is, nothing goes unknown. God sees everything. God sees through it. Yeah? So it may not be the right time when your values have been identified. Never lose faith or hope that it won't be in the future. Yeah? So I think that would be my little bit of advice around that. Unless, Adeline, you would like to add?
Let me borrow your mic. I think I just want to add a little bit to your question, because you're absolutely right. In the sector that we are, in the Cameroon sector that we are, people keep asking, who's your family? For example, we have some names that once you pronounce that name, the doors open. But as Elizabeth said, there is power in working on yourself. There is power in raising your profile. There is power in knowing how to introduce yourself and who you are. So much so that when someone asks you who is your parents, you're going to answer them exactly their question without saying which family you're from. You're going to be able to talk about you without really tapping in your family dynamics. I always like to pull myself up as an example that I'm not from Douala. Probably very, very little people, less people know about me and my family name, you know. But I've been able to work, you know, myself, my skill set, my ability, my profile, raise your profile. Because when you raise your profile, you know you're like a product. You have the product knowledge. And the way you express yourself as a product, people will buy. Okay? Esther, you can testify. Esther is also a very good example. Fix your brand. You are your brand. Fix your brand and people will buy. Yeah? Thank you.
Elizabeth, you mentioned that you went in for an MBA. So I just wanted to find out the impact of the MBA in your career. Did you think it was useful? The networks you were able to make during the MBA, are they still impactful to you now, in your life now?
Fanny, thanks for the question. I think yes. My MBA was a year where I took out to do just personal development. And obviously from that you establish a relative network right across the world and refresh your networks and so forth. So it's relevant in certain aspects, those network connections, and some of them are not really valuable and to me at this point in time, you know, because people choose different career paths and they follow different visions. So I use what's always relevant. I'm always assessing the context. I'm always assessing if it's current to me, if it's valuable down the line. I haven't disconnected from any of my network connections on certain levels, but it's not that I'm deriving value out of it or extracting value and they're not getting value out of me at this point in time, you understand?
Yeah.
But say down the line we meet up in London for a reunion and we bump into each other and there's something happening that they need new thought leadership to go into a project with them on that, to provide that, or to help them facilitate some extension of their business into Africa for some reason. Yeah, then it becomes relevant again. So there's phases and seasons and there's validity at certain points of time. So it's situational, really, and context.
Oh, wow. I think we've come to the end of the question and answer session, but someone has been putting her hand up for such a long time, and I just feel that it's going to be unfair, you know, because they've skipped her like 4 times, so we'll give her this one and then we're good to go.
How do you cope? Because along the line you get to lose a lot of self-esteem. I'm going to speak for myself. I've attended more than 20 interviews since I left the university. And most times I get rejected because what I want to do is not what the certificate carries. And in most job interviews, they're going to give you a specification of what they want. And you see that you have that skill, you have that potential to do that, but you don't have the certificates, you don't carry the certificates for that particular job. So how do you fit in and how do you regain that confidence in yourself, given that you do not have the finances to pursue maybe a second degree or a second master's in another field?
So we were just talking about that briefly before we started, and we know people change careers all the time. People go and study things that don't mean anything to them, you know, because it's what the parents want or what they said is good for you, you know, and you should pursue that. And we've seen this as a problem right throughout life, you know. I will take an example of my sister. She went obviously to School of Architecture. She couldn't do it, yeah, at the university. She didn't have the mindset to apply herself. She wasn't that type of person, yeah. Then she went into food and clothing technology, yeah. Then she went and did holistic medicine, you know. So she had to change careers 4 times in her life.
Wow.
Yeah, and rebuild herself up. And she had to do that part-time by studying at night and attending university at night with the money she made during the day and living. And she's 2 years younger than me, and she's only been practicing for 8 years. So it gives you some type of indication. In my case, it was very different. I was so sporty that all I wanted to do was run and be an athlete until I was in a massive car crash, and it changed the whole direction of my life. And my mum said to me, "But Elizabeth, you're so good at numbers." And I said, "Well, I didn't want to do any of that, you know." So I went and did it as a base course. And I was so good at numbers, and I'm still so good at numbers. I've never changed. But I've got passions outside. But I derive my income from my primary degree. Now, in your case, we have to also start advising and looking at our own families going down the line. Let children be children. Let them draw out the strengths that they have. And we shouldn't go down the line and force people into university boxes where they don't belong. Because it's very frustrating for the person. It's very frustrating when you apply for so many jobs and you can't find a job. Yeah? Or you can't get that break in life. Because there's many people I know face the same situation. And it's very difficult. But I think you don't give up. You have to try. It doesn't mean you have to go back to university and you get a university degree. Go and do soft skills on the internet. Go and get little mini certificates that are for free. Go to the Harvard Business website and there's free courses. And everybody's giving you free. If you get a couple of certificates, you can present those, sure, to get your foot through the door again and onto the ladder. Yeah. So don't be discouraged, that's number one. Never give up hope and upskill.
Upskilling. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and thank you all for your beautiful, wonderful questions. Value added value to what we'll discuss here today. I hope we didn't go overboard, but if so, then that only means we were very, very interested in the conversation. So now we're moving on to the next part, and before we do, I want to thank you so much for sharing your experience with the ladies today. I want to thank you again for your availability and for the opportunity that you've offered to mentor yet another one of, the ladies that we throw your way, unannounced.
Voilà, je voulais vraiment qu'on applaudisse très fort pour Elisabeth parce que, je pense qu'au-delà du partage d'expérience, elle est vraiment allée plus loin. Voilà, c'est un profil international, elle est passée par Coca-Cola, la Tanzanie, pour ne citer que ces pays, l'Afrique du Sud également, ou encore l'Angleterre et aujourd'hui le Cameroun. Je pense que c'est une très grande chance, une très grande opportunité pour nous aujourd'hui de l'avoir parmi nous, et elle a fait preuve aussi d'une grande humilité. Donc je voudrais vraiment qu'on applaudisse très fort pour lui. Thank you so much.